What's going on, everyone? Living to learn. Thanks again for tuning in to another one of my videos. And I love doing these videos, but it is a time commitment, and it is something that I have to be consistent at. It takes effort. So you watching is a big deal. So I just want to say that I appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. Please share these videos, comment any suggestions, any topics you might want to see me cover in the future. I'm always open to it. My Instagram handle is @LiveToLearnCoaching, and you can send me a direct message there, or you can just start following me on there if you want. But you can send me a direct message there if my coaching services are something that you want to inquire about. Maybe you've thought about investing in a life coach, hiring a life coach. Maybe you feel like it's something that's going to help you. Maybe you're stuck in a rut and you just don't really know which direction to go. And you think, hey, maybe some guidance from a life coach would be helpful. Send me a message. We'll go from there. It doesn't hurt. We can definitely set up an introductory call. You're not required to invest or pay me anything until we reach an agreement. And so, if that's something you considered, reach out to me. Send me a message on Instagram. If the videos are good enough, then hey, keep watching the videos. That's what I make them for, right? I hope they're helpful. And of course, you can always donate financially to help me remain consistent and committed to making this content every week. It's not as easy as it looks. I don't know if I make it look easy, but it's not that easy to show up every week. But I do it because, number one, I love it. And number two, because part of my learning process is to challenge myself. And consistency is one of the most difficult things to nail down. Now, there's other parts of my life where I'm still missing the mark, but I'm trying. And as I said before, I'm trying to give myself evidence that I can become this person, that I can become the 3.0, 4.0, 5.0 version of myself, right? If you get what I'm saying. Like, I'm trying to get better. I want to get better. I'm trying to arrive and reach a level of myself that I haven't attained yet. That's something still in the future, and it's something that I have to work on daily. And so the consistency, the commitment, those things are difficult, but they are well worth it. And if they can be found and applied in all areas of my life, that's going to make me that much better of an individual, which in turn is going to make me a much better contributor to society, and especially to my circle. Right, my family, those around me, those that have entrusted themselves to me, those that are being affected by my choices, those that are going to be affected by what I do or don't do. Right, my loved ones, the ones that I'm doing this for. Okay, the ones that have given to me, so I want to give back. This is really my contribution. I grew up in the church, and so I have an understanding of offering, right, of sacrifice, of giving. And giving of yourself, right? Giving of your resources. Now, this is not a religious channel, okay? So don't get scared. I'm not going to start preaching. I'm not going to start, getting all crazy. I don't got a problem with that. I mean, hey, if you have a faith, I have a faith as well. That's something else. If you want to find out more about that, right? Like, hey, what's your spirituality and things like that? Okay, that's a private conversation. Okay. I'm not afraid to express myself on here, but my main concern here is not necessarily to talk about me, but it's to make sure that people that watch this channel, no matter where you come from, what your background is, what your belief is, what your belief isn't, who you identify as, what you identify as, none of that matters here. Okay? This is an all-inclusive, all-affirming, all are welcomed into this space, which is Living to Learn on YouTube. Okay? All are welcome. So my consistency, my commitment, everything that I'm learning, everything that this process of making this content, everything that it's teaching me, it's beneficial. It's been a great benefit and a gift to my life. So I share it with you. And I want to talk about something that was brought to my attention just out of a casual conversation. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to talk about this the next time I sit down and record. my buddy of mine we were just talking, and he says, "Hey, did you ever think about doing a podcast?" Now, yes, number one, I would love to do a podcast. I would love to have a space, mics, equipment, everything to set that up, to be able to interview people, because I love that stuff. I think it's interesting. And I was on a podcast not too long ago. It's called the Louder Now podcast. My buddy Jared Diehl. You can find it on Spotify. I think you can find it probably on all platforms. I listen to it on Spotify. Louder Now podcast. Jared Diehl. Shout out to Jared. Great guy. He actually really, when I was in that interview, it was really interesting because he had me talking about some stuff that I hadn't mentioned in a long time. Things from my past, right? And it's funny because, well, it's not funny, but it's kind of interesting that I'm talking to a friend of mine, and he's asking me about a podcast, and then he's saying like, "Hey man, I'd love to get on there and, interview you, or you can interview me, ask questions. We can talk about mental health." And I thought, yeah, mental health is one of those buzzwords, right? It's one of those things that's just all over the place, and it's very important. And there's a reason why we see it everywhere, because everybody has a mental health journey. Some people are doing better than others. Some people are healthier than others, just like physically, right? We're not all on the same level, but we all have a responsibility to try to be as healthy as we can. And that especially is important when it comes to our mental health, because from the mind, from the mental space is where everything else, it drives everything else, right? This is the server. This is the main computer here. We've got to make sure that's right, because if it isn't, that affects everything else. But anyway, he was asking me about that. Like, "Hey man, when are you going to do a podcast? Did you ever think about that?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to. Once I get the space and the equipment, the setup, love to do it." But he left me thinking about that. Now, going back to when I was on the Louder Now podcast with Jared, I started thinking like, well, wait a minute. When I was on, it's funny because he brings this up, right? And I'm thinking like, when I was on there with Jared, that's what we were talking about. In fact, that's the majority of what he discusses with his guests on his podcast. It's a really great podcast. You guys should check it out. It's called the Louder Now podcast. My buddy Jared, shout out to him, great guy. But yeah, it was crazy because he was, he brought up some things that we were talking about things from my past that I hadn't talked about in a long time. And it had to do with mental health. It had to do with being in a bad place mentally. And I remember that, and I remembered it well. And it's like, and I want to be careful with this because, first of all, I want to say what I'm going to say next. I know applies to myself. It may not apply to you. When it comes to recalling the past, when it comes to bringing up past memories, especially things of that nature, things of a heavy nature, I can't say if it's good or bad. I can only say this. I can only say that you definitely have to be in a place mentally where you're prepared to bring these things back up to the surface and discuss them. Now, Jared wasn't probing me or anything like that. We talked about what, before the interview, we discussed what I was going to actually be sharing. But I still had to dig down and make a recollection of these things that happened. And so then I could remember. I could feel it all over again. I could remember the place I was in. And it was a dark place. And again, I want to be sensitive to people that have gone through some real traumatic experiences. Because I know this. I've said this before in other videos. I think I grew up about as good as you could. Other than just having, billions of dollars in the bank, right? I've had everything else that you could ask for. The things that are really worthwhile, the things that are priceless, the things that money can't buy. Family support, love, encouragement, peace, stability. I mean, I can go on and on and on, and shout out to my family. I know my parents watch these videos. My dad watches them. And so I try to mention that as often as I can so they know that I really do appreciate it. But with that being said, as good as I grew up, as good of an environment that I was brought up in, support and love, family wise, I still have endured and dealt with things. I still have had dark moments mentally. And so mental health, I understand. I understand why it's such a big topic. It's such a big deal. The things that have helped me, community. Right? It helps it helps, number one, that I can find community in my immediate family. That's a bonus. But also having a good circle of friends. I have a very small circle of close friends. But I am thankful for those individuals, because they are definitely a help in my mental health journey. The other thing is finding purpose. I mentioned in my last video that it started to come to me, it started to occur to me that I had a talent and I had a gift that I could eventually utilize to create this different life for myself and my family. And that's exactly where I'm headed. But I first had to recognize that I had a purpose and a talent, and that I was bringing something to the table. That has helped me immensely. That's helped me immensely. I mean, this is like my therapy. I think I've mentioned it before. This is kind of like therapy for me. I get to come on here and I just get to be honest. I just get to be myself. I get to say it the way that I would say it. And in turn, it becomes uplifting. It becomes something encouraging and helpful to other people. That helps me out big time. The other thing that helps is that I have this attitude. I have this drive to learn things. Right? I'm reading books. I got books everywhere, right? Everywhere. I'm always reading. I think I said this before on one of my earlier videos. Shout out to my pops, Dad. You'll remember when you said this. When I was in school, I wasn't crazy about school, right? When I was growing up. My dad used to tell me, son, if I saw you in a book every day, if I saw you reading a book every day, I really wouldn't worry about your grades too much. I'll never forget that. Of course, me being this, smart know-it-all kid that I was, I didn't take advantage of it. But now, I'm reading like crazy, so thank you, Dad. But those are the things that have been helpful to me in my mental health journey. Those are the things that have helped me get from where I was to where I am now. Right? Yes, of course, my spirituality and my beliefs. Okay? If you ever go to, or if you know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, NA, and by the way, shout out to those organizations, because I think they are amazing. I love that you can go in there, you can be yourself, you can just be honest. I think we need more of that. But one of the things, right, one of the steps, the 12 steps of AA is belief in a higher power, right? That there's something out there greater than myself that I can lean on and that I can draw from. Okay? Now again, if you feel like that's not something that applies to you, then don't let it apply to you. That's fine. But that's also been helpful. Right? It's been helpful. I grew up in the church. This isn't a religious channel. It's not going to have anything to do with that. Not because I'm ashamed or I don't like it, but I want people to feel welcomed here. And I don't want to put up anything that creates any kind of red tape or puts people off from benefiting from something that maybe the way I say is what they needed to hear. I don't want to get in my own way. But my experience in church, for the most part, was a positive one. I met amazing people. I found counsel. I found help. I found friendships, lifelong relationships. The church helped me develop my talent. The church gave me a place and an opportunity to develop my public speaking abilities, to learn leadership, to learn how to work hard, to learn how to be, again, consistent, to learn commitment. So I learned a lot of good things. I have a lot of good things to take away from that. But this topic of mental health, and we can go so many different ways. And again, when I get there, and I'm going to say it like that, when I get there, when I get to a place where I have some setup for a podcast and I can interview people and I can have guests, I'll definitely be bringing some people on from the mental health field, people that are in psychology, social workers, people that are in the front lines that actually know more about this stuff than I do. All I can do is share what's in my mind and coming from my heart about things that I have found helpful. And so I hope this video is helpful to you. I hope they all are. And last thing I want to leave you with is this. Please don't for 1 second think that you don't have something to contribute. You have something to bring to the table. Because you are you. No one can see the world through your eyes. No one understands like you understand. No one can describe it like you can describe it. When you show up, there's a unique, patented individual. And I say patented because there isn't another like you. You've got to find value in that. You've got to appreciate that. You've got to do your best to know that. Don't discount yourself. You are more than you think. And you're capable of being more than you are right now. So with that being said, have a great week, have a great day, and thanks for tuning in.